Round, round, get around, I get around. And I dare not say any more before I get booted off of YouTube and Facebook. For those watching on Facebook, link is in this video's description to watch on YouTube. For those watching on YouTube, link is in this description to join in on the conversation here on Facebook. I'll be doing live Q&A as I always do at the end of the show on both YouTube and Facebook. So if you've got questions for me, if you got comments, if you got topics you want me to talk about, get them in now. Get them in as soon as they come to you before you forget them, and we'll get to them at the end of the show. So what do I mean by I've been getting around? Well, I've kind of been traveling. I've been doing a lot of things both in the real world and virtually as well. The first of which most of you have probably already seen, and that, of course, relates to the endless boondoggle that is the Chernisky Road Bridge project. As you guys have probably already seen, I've been passing around this petition, which I'm going to put a link to in the comment section momentarily, and I'm going to go ahead and just bring this up. I want this one, yes. So you guys have probably seen this change.org petition. This is not really my thing normally, but it's gotten to the breaking point where I need to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and put the link in the comment section here so you guys can jump in on that if you want to. Let me put that here in the comment section on YouTube, and I'm about to put it in on Facebook. Thanks for tuning in, everybody who's already jumped in. We're going to go ahead and read through this petition, and it'd be really awesome if you guys could jump in on this. Now, I do also have, when it comes to the Chernisky Road Bridge project, a handwritten petition, a paper petition, which you guys can see here. I'll be getting around this week to passing that around to you, which we'll get to in just a moment. If you guys want me to come to you so I can get you this petition so you can sign in person, that'd be great. The town council, the members of the town council that are going to see this, the one that they're going to see more than likely is going to be this. It is less visible for them to see the change.org petition, but I will bring the hardware that I need to bring to the next town council meeting so that they can see who has signed on change.org and who has signed the petition I've put together on paper. So what I'm going to do actually is just run through this petition because the Chernisky Road Bridge project has come up yet again in conversation. It's a project that should have already completed straight up years ago, and I've kind of made as concise a history of this on the petition. I've entitled the petition, Build the Damned Bridge. So you guys have seen this thumbnail before. I've talked about this a lot. We'll just run through this. It takes about 5 minutes to read. Infinite money is not an appropriate limit to governmental spending on any project, much less an 18-foot bridge. If nothing else, New Milford's governing body, the town council, must understand that the money that is taxed from New Milford residents is not their money and should be treated far more delicately than spending hundreds of thousands and probably millions more of our money on their Chernisky Road Bridge project to cater to the whim of the loudest 5 or 6 people in the proverbial room. $600,000 of ARPA money, which we can talk about if you have questions about that, has already been set aside for this project, which could have been spent in other places. Had the Department of Public Works / Town Council simply accepted the early draft design proposals and moved on with the project, that amount would have not only certainly covered the replacement of the bridge in totality, prompt agreement to let DPW do their jobs would have seen this project completed years ago. The project is now set to not even break ground until next year. Delays in the demands of the said loudest half dozen people have caused the bridge project costs to balloon to well over $1 million. After over 5 years, 4 series of bridge designs, 1 emergency act, and 2 DPW directors worth of bending over backwards to cater to the whim of said half dozen, and their interference into the specific minutiae of the bridge's design. What is on the table now are 2 competing designs, a 2-lane bridge and a 1-lane bridge. Building a 1-lane bridge by current estimates, typo, will fail to meet the demands of the state of Connecticut, will disqualify the town for a 50-50 matching grant, whose window for application closes on April 30th of this year from the state, and will, at net, cost New Milford taxpayers at least $830,000 more than already spent, and, at net, $600,000 more than a 2-lane bridge design. It is also likely that a box culvert design, which we can get into in details if you guys have questions about that, rather than the proposed poured-in-place design, would save hundreds of thousands of dollars still. Further delays in the project's run will only increase construction costs, and the current delays have forced environmental studies, which will have no legal impact on the bridge's design and construction, regardless of what the studies find, and will only act to increase costs and add time. The current delays have also led the Army Corps of Engineers to a position where they are demanding a 2-foot freeboard. Again, we've been over all this, but I'll happily go over it again if you guys have questions, which would increase the bridge's construction costs by hundreds of thousands of dollars further still. It is patently obvious that a 2-lane bridge along a road which is 2 lanes for the entirety of its miles of run, except for those 18 feet, is a significantly more safe design than a 1-lane bridge, which would force drivers to face 2-ton hunks of steel in opposite directions down the same stretch of road. This is an undue danger regardless of what speed the drivers are traveling, and this is the primary basis for why the state refuses to go along with a single-lane bridge design. The demands of said half dozen have delayed the project to its breaking point, literally. The structural supports of the bridge have critically failed and are beginning to collapse entirely in large chunks. As such, the bridge has been closed for almost an entire year and will continue to be so until the project completes. With other bridges being set for replacement along the Trinisky Road detour, both our fire and police chiefs have sent formal safety concerns for the provision of emergency services to the parts of New Milford surrounding the bridge and have requested swift, if necessary, emergency action be taken to remedy the situation immediately. As such, the town has considered purchasing an emergency temporary bridge structure, which would allow the Trinisky Road Bridge to temporarily open in short order for what would likely be over $200,000. There is no reason to be treating the hard-earned money and the majority of There's no reason to be treating the hard-earned money and the majority of residents in New Milford in this manner. There is no reason to allow the most obnoxious and belligerent half dozen to justify the interference with the pedantic minutiae of engineering design at DPW to this degree. Consent of the governed requires their consent, and there is no reason to believe with any sincerity that the majority of this town is willing to have their money spent and time wasted in this manner. It is therefore the opinion of the here signed that it is time for the New Milford Town Council and the Department of Public Works to move forward with the bridge's design in the manner that will waste the least of our money and our time. 2 lanes with, if it saves time and money, a box culvert. It is time to end this conversation and to reject the policy of the squeakiest wheel gets the grease, a policy which only reduces to the playground rules of the biggest and most obnoxious bully gets his way. It is time to let the reason and good sense, which our elected officials were elected for, to prevail. It is time to let DPW do their damn jobs and build the damned bridge. So again, I'm really hoping you guys will sign on to that. If you guys agree with me, please do sign the petition. If you guys disagree with me, well then, I'll be going out this week. And one of the reasons I'm going to be going out is because the version of this petition that town council is most likely to see is, going to be the paper version. And yes, I have pages and pages and pages in the back of this for you to sign. So if you guys want me to come to you, I'll be happy to come to you. I'll also be setting up posts throughout parts of New Milford, which I'll get back to you on because I've got to make some phone calls to get people's permission to do so. So I'll have tabling events, and I will let you guys know when I'm getting around town, as they say, so you guys can come chat with me. If you guys disagree with me, if you guys want more info, just come to these events, which I'll be getting more info on to you guys momentarily. Like I said, it'll be tomorrow. I'll probably have the first bit of information on that matter. The first place I'm going to go is going to be tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Let me get my notes up here. I got to get my notes out. The first place I'm going to be going to get some more signatures than I already have is the RTC meeting, which is going to be happening, the Republican Town Committee meeting, which is happening tomorrow night at the Loretta Brickley Room. This will actually be the first time I'm going to be going, though I wasn't specifically invited. And I'm hoping that the people that are in that room, if anyone sees this video, I'm hoping that you guys will be cool with signing on to this petition. I'm pretty sure most of the room actually agrees with me because the response I've been getting from this petition is that this is the unanimous petition of this town, the way I've described it. In fact, And one of these places I'm going to try to be is on the green. So guys, come chat with me if you want to. The response I've been getting has been kind of unexpected. Not only has everybody been on board with the position I've suggested, there's been an awful lot of responding in kind to the most cynical take on this position. Excuse me, what do I mean by that? Well, these 5 or 6 people have been absolutely belligerent and obnoxious in this place. Bridges in this town shouldn't have to go through this. I shouldn't have to put a petition together to get a bridge built, right? The town wants to build this bridge. The town of New Milford and the public officials want to build this bridge just like they would at Tamarack, just like they did at Mud Pond, just like they do at all kinds of bridges all over town, in the dozens and dozens and dozens of bridges we have in this town that get replaced regularly and usually within about a year or 2, sometimes 3 if things get dragged out, and never for $2 million freaking dollars, which is what we're going to wind up talking about today. So I talked about briefly in previous shows how the most cynical response to this is that, is the response I'm getting in about a quarter of the responses that I'm getting here too, which is at this point, don't build a bridge. At this point, just don't build a bridge. Park 2 Jersey barriers on either side of the bridge and abandon the road. For that 18 feet of road, just abandon it. We have a process by which you can abandon a road here in town. The town has done it. I've watched them do it multiple times. It hasn't been that long since we last did this with a road, and just don't even sell the bridge. Just hand the bridge off to those residents, to those 5 or 6 people who are delaying this project and are costing you, the taxpayer, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars that did not have to go towards this project, right? Like obviously the bridge ought to be replaced, but it could have been done for something like $400,000. And now it's going to be millions, genuinely millions, plural, with an S at the end, millions, to replace this bridge. And it should have been done 2 years ago. I have it on good account that it should have been completed 2 years ago. From somebody I would consider an absolute expert in the field within these ranks, right? So the response I've been getting has, and I didn't see this coming, has very often been the extremely cynical response, which in fairness, if they're going to be a cynic, if you're going to be a cynic to us, then as they say, if you want to be a genie, you got it. And everything that comes with that. Which in this case is, if you're going to be a cynic, you're going to be met with the most cynical take. Which is to just, at this point, don't bother building the bridge. It's going to cost us $200,000, at least $200,000, to get even a temporary bridge up. It's going to cost us another minimum few $100,000 to replace the bridge based on the spec that is the least expensive spec right now. We're going to spend, on top of that $600,000 in ARPA funds, which has been earmarked for this project, we're going to definitely be spending probably another $500,000 on this project. Out of your pockets, out of New Milford taxpayer pockets. So all this petition is a way of basically telling the town council, not necessarily that the bridge ought to be built, but that our time and money you should stop wasting our time and money. And this idea that the bridge could be replaced, I want to just go touch on something real quick. The 18-wheelers problem. First things first, ignoring that this is a dubious claim, for everyone watching, for the members of the town council that are watching, the way you resolve, this is an enforcement issue. This isn't a design issue. This isn't an engineering issue. This isn't a policy issue. That bridge is already weight rated for empty 18-wheelers. The weight rating for that bridge is for an empty 18-wheeler. If you know anything about trucking, there's no possible way that the trucks that are going over there that are 18-wheelers, again, dubious claim, right? Like extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. And if I told you guys 5'6" Mike Sennello, who's 36, out of shape, and everybody knows who I am, right? Who was never good at basketball and wrestled in high school instead of playing basketball. If I told you I was in an NBA game, a real midseason game, and dunked on somebody, you'd say, you'd roll your eyes and say, come on, Mike. Or at the very least, you'd say, well, then show me the video, right? And that's kind of what I'm looking at here. Even if we're going to just see right past the dubiousness of the claim that 18-wheelers are regularly traveling down that road, or before the bridge was closed, 18-wheelers are regularly traveled down that road, all you do is you park a cop on that bridge after its completion and pull over the first 18-wheeler that goes over that bridge. There's no way he's not going to be overweight. And again, we talked about this before, you're not dealing with the DMV, you're dealing with the DOT, who is going to bend that driver and that company over and pitchfork them, right? That driver's life is over. That company's out of business. And then the truckers talk. No one talks in business. No one talks like truckers do. Word's going to get out. Word gets out. And if we're worried about speeding too, you do the same thing that's been done on Boardman Road for years. As you go by those fields in Nestle, like, you know that you can't speed down that road. And the reason you know that you can't speed down that road is because everyone knows there's going to be a cop car parked there. It's parked there too often to get away with speeding down that road. And everybody knows it. This is not New York City. This is New Milford. Everybody knows how this town works. And it's just like the truckers. Word will get out. So I wasn't expecting the cynicism. Maybe at the end of the show, we'll come back and revisit, like, from a philosophical standpoint, this matter, like, should the town even build the bridge at this point? As far as a covered bridge is concerned, like, come on, guys. The way you fix this problem with 18-wheelers is to enforce the weight rating. The weight rating is for an empty tractor trailer. So that's all I'm going to say about that. Right. And this is a topic that I've kind of I've been trying to debunk for a long time because, again, it's costing a fortune and it's taking forever. And because we're going to have to shut down other bridges this year along that detour, we're going to have to spend even more money to get this temporary bridge put in place. And again, if you guys want me to come to you, I'll come to you with this petition so you guys can sign it. Otherwise, link is in this video's description. Please, please check that out. So the other thing that I've been doing, oh man, excuse me. The other thing that I've been doing, and kind of segues naturally from debunking, is, well, I've seen the claim, as I'm sure you guys have, and you guys may have seen this video already that I've put out, that's come from the office of Ned Lamont, that Ned Lamont's budget has somehow created a $3 billion surplus. So the video that I put together, I put together a video to debunk all of that. That's on my channel. It's in the top left there. You can go to the Captain Phoenix channel. I'm about to drop the link in here. Let me get to that. Yeah, so you can come here, and then that's the video I put together to debunk all of that. So just in short, it's a fat load. And what I've decided to do is just go over all of that. We're not going to sit here and watch the whole video. I'll put a link to that video in the comments section now. Here, 68 bridges in New Milford from Mike Boucher. Yeah, dozens and dozens and dozens of bridges. But so this is the video I put together debunking Ned Lamont. And just so people are clear, I'm actually also going to share. So the claim is that Ned Lamont put out, and we're not going to watch his video either, just because we need to get through this. But Ned Lamont claimed that he created a $3 billion surplus, and that he did it without increasing taxes. And he said so explicitly in his video, which is now unlisted and has been unbelievably hard for me to find since I made my debunking video, which happened premiered April 1st, happened on Friday. So since Friday, this has become significantly more difficult to find. I'll share the link right now. And we're going to debunk this in real time now because I've been accused of fake news when it comes to this sort of thing. And the easiest way to debunk this is to just go straight to his budget. We can actually pull up the budget itself, which you can do by just typing into DuckDuckGo, CT budget. It's the first link that comes up. It's the very first link that comes up, right? And I'll let me just share the link then to the budget itself. I'll share this because it's going to be like too fine print for you guys to read as we go. But the place that we're going to go to first is page 30. And when I say page 30, I mean Adobe page 30. And I'll just break down what a budget surplus is. So what is a budget surplus? A budget surplus is, as you learn in day one, an absolute day one of any business school course, there is revenues minus expenses equals owner's equity. Whenever you're building a budget, as I've done with a number of companies that I've worked with, that's the way you calculate the surplus. And that's if you just go into Adobe and type in page 30, there it is. Got it highlighted in red. Revenues minus expenses. That's your budget surplus. That's the surplus. If you're going to be at all financially, it's right there. It's right there. For those of you who have gone out and publicly said that I'm the one putting out fake news, it's right there. It's right there. The link is in the top. The link is right here. You can see the link right here. There it is. There it is. Revenues minus expenses. And what do we wind up getting when it comes to revenues minus expenses? There it is. There it is, folks. 275. excuse me, 270, yeah, it is. Well, you can see what the amount is. It's 270 something $million. I can't read it from here. It's too fine a print for me to read right now. 270 something $1 million, right? Not $3 billion. It's right there in his own budget. Worse, worse, 268 million of that isn't capturable. By law, by policy, isn't capturable. So what the budget surplus amount actually works out to, what the budget surplus actually works out to is the number right below that square on the bottom right, $4.2 million. $4.2 million. That's your actual budget surplus, which is a far cry from $3 billion. So if you've been seeing this ad, this is what I was talking about. When I put out that video, Debunking Ned Lamont, this is what I was talking about right here. And we're doing it in real time. We're doing it in real time. So you can go onto that website and you can see it. I put the link in the video's description, or I just put the link in the comment section. You can do that. What's actually more telling is on page 39. Again, you can go into Adobe, and at the top of the screen, you can see where there's a place where you can type in page 39 and just jump to it. This is how he's gotten there. Now, I've highlighted two sections here, but this is what this is the page of revenue projections. And the short version of this is, how has he gotten there? Delusion. Absolute delusion when it comes to revenue projections. These two lines are for the tax on cannabis sales, the sales tax for cannabis, for weed, and the excise tax for weed. Somehow, we're going to get a 6-fold increase in revenues from those lines. In an industry that's cash and crypto only. In an industry that finished its rollout in June of last year. In an industry where you still have to fudge your reporting to avoid federal prosecution, to avoid federal crimes. In an industry where there's still a state cap on dispensaries. Where in the world are you getting this 6-fold increase from? Like, are you guys the buyers? Are you high? Like, where are you getting these projections from? So we're going to need a source citation on that somewhere, other than to just say delusion. One of the other lines too that's coming through is gaming. We're going to get $40-something million from gaming from the Indian casinos. Right, Lamont does know it's illegal to tax the Indian tribes. Lamont does know it's not legal for the states and for the federal government to tax the Indian tribes themselves, which is it's what this is claiming. So maybe there's something I don't know, but again, $40-something million, which again is too fine a print for me to read on my screen right now. $40-something million from a tax collection on Indian tribes. Citation needed, to say the absolute least. But the biggest news, of course, is at the very bottom. And let me just go through this real quick. There's some other things in here that are complete BS. Remember that claim at the beginning, how he said he was going to do this without increases in taxes. Well, this is a tax. This is a charge. This is a fee for credit cards and debit cards, right? $2.5 million is going to come from this service fee. That's a tax. But moving on, the most important part is at the very bottom of the revenue side of the balance sheet. $975 million of this is just draining reserves and federal COVID grants that didn't exist before last year, and we're doing it to the tune of $200 million more than we did last year. Just short of $1 billion of this is one-time injections that you can't possibly ever get back. And you can't expect these COVID grants. Well, maybe you do. If you're going to be a complete cynic about Brandon, then maybe they continue on into 2023. But you can't, if you're being honest about and financially literate about this matter, there's no way you can expect that to continue on moving forward. And by the way, we're already having serious problems with financial solvency in this state. We're already having serious problems with that. The last I looked, and I showed it in this video, when it comes to long-term financial stability, when it comes to long-term financial solvency, when it comes to, we'll come back to that in a minute. But Connecticut's financial solvency has been either dead last or second last in this country for almost a decade by every course of study that has ever been put together on this matter. So when it comes to running a business, when it comes to doing anything, you don't spend reserves and one-time basically capital influxes on operational income. This is just financial illiteracy. And speaking of financial illiteracy, what we see if we go up 2 lines, $85 million in breaking gap. $85 million in deferring deficit reconciliation. That's what we're doing. We're just kicking the can down the road to the tune of $85 million in deficits to 2024. This is a revenue line when government does it, but when you and I do it, it's cooking the books. Fraud. This now unlisted video was really hard for me to find, where he made the claim that he had created a $3 billion surplus. I challenge you guys to find it on Google. I challenge you guys to find it. I had to basically go to Hearst Media and find a link to the video that was embedded into one of their articles, right? And then it took me to the unlisted video that's apparently only got 25 views, which I'm guessing is actually a re-uploading of this video if it's only got 25 views. Like 5 of them are mine. So I wonder what the motivation is for going about all of that. But I think we actually have a speaking toward that. Because Ned Lamont kind of did a giant walking back of this claim over the weekend. Yeah. It's not a $3 billion. You notice that in the second paragraph there. It's not a $3 billion surplus anymore. It's just a surplus. This is Connecticut. This is Connecticut. This is one of the worst, in terms of financial solvency, this is one of the worst financially run states in the union, and it's been that way forever. Forever. Especially when it comes to unfunded liabilities, which we're going to come back to in just a second. If I was governor and I managed to create an actual $3 billion surplus, this would be included in everything I ever did from here to eternity. This would be in every tweet, every Facebook post, every time I got in front of a camera, anytime a news reporter put a microphone in front of my mouth. Hi, I'm Governor Mike Sennello, who created the $3 billion surplus in 2022. What's your question? I'm inserting that everywhere I possibly can. And now it's just a surplus. So we could go ahead and scroll down for context. Oof. This doesn't help. This isn't helping your cause. Paying people to basically dodge municipal taxes isn't a state level tax reduction. That's not a tax cut. That's not a state tax cut, right? Same thing with putting a cap, which is what this is. Putting a cap on mill rates is superseding the town. That's actually removing consent of the governed by dissolving devolution of authority to the lower level, right? You're interfering with that consent. This is not something I would be bragging about, and it's definitely not a tax cut. As far as the pension exemption, okay, you got me. State employees who are collecting a pension are going to be exempt from taxes on those pension dollars for another 3 years. You got me. This is a tax cut on those people. Remind me again why we're in such financial dire straits in Connecticut. Something about unfunded liabilities. And we're going to just go ahead and extend the deferral, extend the exemption for that. As far as student loan tax credits are concerned, again, this is just paying off somebody else's debt. In the end, you're paying the employer to pay the debt, right? So this is just paying somebody else's debt. When somebody else incurs this debt and you pay for it, that's not generally speaking considered a tax cut, especially when, in order to balance the budget, when you when you increase a cost, you have to increase the revenue line somewhere. Notice how in all of this conversation, there's never anything about the actual major sources of state tax collections, which is income tax, which is production side taxation, which is the state tax on businesses. and the various versions thereof. I mean, thank God this is an election year. And speaking of which, as a libertarian, allow me now some time to talk about some libertarians. And we're actually not going to start in Connecticut. We're actually going to start in New Hampshire because this is just too good. We're going to start in New Hampshire where Jeremy Kaufman has put together, and we showed it last week, and we're going to do it again this week because it's funny. Jeremy Kaufman has the absolute best ad campaign ever. Let me make sure I have the audio set right to this. Make sure active sources, because I don't want to run into more technical difficulties. I want to have at least one show where we get through this without technical difficulties. Anyways, this is the absolute best campaign ad I've ever seen. I'll drop a link while this is running into the comment section to where you guys can see it on Odyssey, which we'll talk about in just a second, because I did YouTube last week. Guys, enjoy this hilarious bit of satire.
Picture this. Innocent people in the Middle East. They're having dinner. A bomb is dropped on their house, and they're all killed. What's the problem with this? It's being done by white men. I am Jeremy Kaufman, the Chief Diversity Officer at Halliburton and candidate for United States Senate. It is time to diversify the murderous military-industrial complex. We need to make the nukes gay. And that's why I'm running for office. Like my fellow Democrats and Republicans, I will support every war. I will support stealing billions of dollars from Americans to kill innocent people, but we are gonna make it so gay. It will go down in the history books. We will say never have so many genders and so many races killed innocent people. Let's bomb Yemen, but let's make sure a rainbow of skin colors are dropping those bombs. These are gonna be the gayest transist murders the United States has ever performed. That's what I stand for as the Chief Diversity Officer at Halliburton, and that's what I'll do once elected to the United States Senate. I'm Jeremy Kaufman, and I'm gay for this message. I'm serious.
Okay. Yep, I know. I'm going to make you guys sit through that until he comes on to the show because it's just too good. By the way, that was Jeremy Kaufman, who's running as a libertarian in a flippable Senate seat in New Hampshire. He's been on the show before. We got to get him back on the show. Basically what I'm asking from you guys in addition to signing that petition is to go ahead and get on Twitter. Link is I'm putting the links in the comments section right now, and just bombard Jeremy. Just bombard Jeremy with requests so we can get him back on the show. He's unfortunately gotten too big. Jeremy Kaufman, so folks know, is the founder and CEO of Odyssey. He doesn't work at Halliburton. He's never worked at Halliburton. That's kind of the running joke. And as people might know, Odyssey is, for all intents and purposes, the real free speech competitor and rival to YouTube. It's growing exponentially. It's got way better video compression than YouTube. And quite frankly, if I was a bigger streamer and could get into streaming live streaming onto Odyssey, that's where I'd be live streaming. So Jeremy, again, if you get this message, man, let me into live streaming on Odyssey. I want to get onto there. The other thing that should be actually front page news is the back end of Odyssey's library, which you guys may have heard of as well, LBRY. Jeremy was the founder and CEO of LBRY. It's a blockchain network it's the protocol upon which the front end library was Odyssey, was built. So Odyssey is a decentralized version of YouTube that's just better, and also decentralized. So there's basically no way for them to even control it. Just about no way for them to actually control the end content that's on there. And they use the library token to handle some of the back end of that. The SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission, is suing LBRY on the most dubious of terms possible. And honestly, this should be front page news everywhere. And if it weren't for the fact that this is, crypto getting gets butt kicked in court, then it probably would be. If it was the opposite direction, if it was politically opposite of what it is, it probably would be headline news. But the truth is that the nature of the suit, the grounds upon which the SEC is actually suing Odyssey, or is actually suing Library and Jeremy, who was in New York this past week to answer questions from the SEC. Yes, there was a libertarian that had to shave and put on a suit and speak formally in person to the SEC, to the federal government, and he did. And, the questions that I'm sure he's going to come back with and let us know with a transcript and let us know what those questions were. The nature of the suit, what they're suing, the SEC is suing Library on the grounds of, is basically the end of crypto if they succeed. Now, it's who knows if they're going to succeed in this suit. Their case is actually on the merits of the case as flimsy as it could possibly come. But again, they're their own judge, jury, and executioner. So who knows how things are going to come out with all of that. But again, if they do succeed on the grounds that they're actually suing upon, then this is probably the death of crypto as we know it. This is probably the end of Bitcoin, Ethereum, Doge, all of that stuff, at least as we know it. So that's Jeremy Kaufman. I hope you guys will at least give him some attention, give him some follow. He is the most based man on the internet and is a fun follow on places like Twitter and Facebook. So give him a look. Segueing now onto Connecticut Libertarians, the Connecticut Libertarian Party had its convention yesterday, which basically was a snow date. We were supposed to have this sooner, but it was a snow date. We were supposed to have this sooner. Excuse me. Well, I was just going over some notes here. It was a snow date. We were supposed to have this sooner. They announced their slate of candidates as a result, because that's when we actually did our voting for our candidate slate. Basically, the only thing that matters is that Dr. Aaron Lewis, is going to be the Libertarian candidate for governor. I don't feel the need to share that link. The other thing that was kind of cool was that I did get to meet, for all of the registered Libertarians or people that are considering it, I did get to meet Angela McArdle, who is running at the national level. She's running for the Libertarian Party chair, so for the entire Libertarian Party here in the U.S. So that was kind of cool that somebody who lives in Los Angeles and is on the national committee made the trek all the way out to Connecticut in April to meet with the Libertarians here. So I did get a chance to chat with her, and that was really cool. As far as libertarian news here in Connecticut is concerned, like I said, Dr. Aaron Lewis for governor is basically the only news to come out of that convention that matters. And there was no nominee. There is not going to be a Libertarian candidate for the 5th Congressional House District here in Connecticut, which is currently occupied by Jahana Hayes. What I'd like to do, and I did get a chance to do some networking, so hopefully we'll be able to get some interviews out of all of that. If you are a candidate, regardless of party, since this is an election year, running on any ticket in Connecticut, and you want to have a conversation, this is a formal open invitation to any candidate who's running for elected office here in Connecticut. And if you're a Libertarian and you're running for elected office out of state, sure, why don't you come on in? So open invitation to have a discussion like I've had in the past with numerous other candidates for other positions, especially local positions. So hopefully we'll be able to get something out of that in terms of interviews. Hopefully we'll be having some more of that moving forward. Speaking of moving forward in libertarian news too, the Libertarian Party of Litchfield County will be having its monthly meeting on April 24th, as we always do. So if you want to meet some libertarians in the area, it's the final Sunday of every month, we go to the Abbey, and we meet at the Abbey at 2 p.m. So RTC is happening tomorrow night. That's at the Loretta Brickley Room at 7 p.m. That's at Town Hall. I'll be there. I'll also be at the Libertarian Party of Litchfield County's meeting, which is, again, final Sunday of the month, 2 p.m. at the Abbey. The formal business part of our meetings for the Litchfield County Libertarians takes about 3 to 5 minutes. So challenge to the RTC, beat our 3 to 5 minutes. And then usually what we wind up doing is spending an hour and a half just drinking beers and purveying a local business and, giving them our money in exchange for food and beer. And speaking of all of that, a huge part of why I bring this up is to kind of dunk on my fellow libertarians. There's a lot of problems within libertarian ranks, but so folks know, this show has been focused on local politics because that's what I care about, and that's what's going to impact your day-to-day life more than anything else. So the town council there's going to be a town council meeting for sure. Not tomorrow night, Monday, but a week from tomorrow. If you guys want this Chernisky Road Bridge project to not cost you a fortune and to see the road actually get fixed, so the road that you drive down, if you live in that area, that you could be driving down every day, actually gets repaired, this is the impact that local politics has. You go to the town council meeting next Monday, not tomorrow Monday, the week from Monday. On the 13th of April, there's going to be a Board of Finance public hearing for the budget. Again, this is all going to be stuff that you have a real chance to impact your day-to-day life on. Right, and that's coming up. We're going to come back to that public hearing. But one of the major issues with libertarians is that they just don't know their place. And my vision of the Libertarian Party in Connecticut is not a popular vision of libertarians. Republicans will probably agree with me on this one. That I think the Libertarian Party in Connecticut should be, as a state party, basically just a way to connect the local parties and the local affiliates with each other so that we can coalesce around candidates that have real chances of getting elected in places where it would actually be meaningful. For example, if there's a candidate running in, say, Stafford Springs, right, for the Stafford Springs Board of Education, a place where all you need is like 300 votes and you're on the Board of Ed, a place where it's a blood red town, where Democrats really are only getting into these positions because of minority representation rules and regulations coming from Hartford regarding that. They are winners by default. So that would be a place where the state can come to the Libertarian Party of Litchfield County and say, hey guys, there's this Libertarian candidate running in Stafford Springs, right? And the Republicans are running 6 candidates for that position, running 6 candidates for the Board of Ed, which means that in these 9 slots, all this Libertarian has to do is take 9th place, and he's not going to steal a position from a Republican candidate. But he will get elected if he takes so much as 9th place. And a town like that, they're not fans of their Democrat candidates. Kind of like what we have here in New Milford, where the local DTC has pissed off their own party membership, Democrats, to a point where Democrats won't elect Democrats in this town, where like third-party candidates have a real shot of winning. And this is a hot take that I don't think that my fellow libertarians actually agree with in most part. But let's go through some numbers real quick. In 2018 in New York, right, the Libertarian Party is going to be running a Libertarian candidate for governor, right? And we're going to come back to some other reasons to get elected, other reasons to run a campaign other than to get elected. Dan Reel is right about this. If you're going to be a Libertarian running for elected office, run because you want to get elected. Run expecting to get elected. Run to win. Otherwise, you're wasting people's time, money, and energy. This is a state where ballot access means nothing. It's really easy to get onto the ballot in the state without automatic ballot access. So I completely reject this notion that we should just have placeholders. The Libertarian Party of Connecticut should focus itself on these much lower positions where there's a real chance to get elected. And speaking of real chances to get elected, let me explain to the libertarians in the room what getting elected as a libertarian is at the gubernatorial level. In 2018, I'm going to start in New York, and we're going to be talking about Larry Sharp's campaign. And the reason we're going to be talking about Larry Sharp's campaign is because he had something like 400 stops on that campaign in 365 days. No one hit the road and raised money in terms of libertarians like Larry Sharp did in New York. No one in the history of the party has put together the effort that Larry Sharp has done and continues to do in New York. Larry Sharp is somebody I'm mentioning because you might actually know his name, and most of the people watching this show do not live in New York, right? I live in Connecticut, and he's a household name within libertarians in Connecticut. He's a household name within libertarians in Montana. He's a household name in most people's political minds in New York State. This isn't the case with Rod Hanscom. Who remembers Rod Hanscom? I had to go look him. I'm a libertarian in Connecticut, and I had to go look up who the libertarian candidate for governor was in 2018, right? With all of the effort that Larry Sharp has gone through, he's been on Joe Rogan's podcast. He's been on Tim Pool's podcast, right? Like, people know who Larry Sharp is. He's got like like 200,000 followers on YouTube, on Facebook. His live shows on YouTube by himself, his random potato camera live shows with crap audio, right? They get hundreds of live viewers on YouTube, which is a big deal, right? Instant name recognition in a way that no other libertarian candidate has, outside of maybe Gary Johnson in a campaign that was like, the only reason he was relevant is because at the time, Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton were incredibly unpopular candidates, right? Because we didn't have Donald Trump policy. We just had Donald Trump Twitter, right? And not too many people like Donald Trump Twitter, but now that we've seen his policy, in 2020, there were a lot of people that voted for, in 2016, there were a lot of people that voted for Donald Trump between gritted teeth that were proud to vote for him in 2020 because we saw the policy. Right? Complete wild card in 2016. Hillary Clinton, worst candidate ever. And if you're a Democrat and you disagree with me, that's the candidate that lost to Donald Trump before he got into office. So, worst candidate ever. And that's why Gary Johnson is in any way a name anyone knows. It's only because he's basically winner by default. In 2018, Larry Sharpe, with all of that effort and with all of that name recognition, didn't even take third place. He took fourth place with a whopping 1.56% of the vote. This was a state where Democrat incumbent Andrew Cuomo, even then, before all of the sexual harassment stuff, was incredibly unpopular for a Democrat candidate. This is somebody who in a state like New York should be winning 80-20. 80-20, and he got 59.6, and he was polling at like 35%. This is somebody, again, who should be polling at like 70-75%, as every other Democrat governor would. Democrats hated Andrew Cuomo and voted for him to the tune of 59.62% of the vote. We're just short of a super majority in Andrew Cuomo's case. Like, I hate to say it because I love the guy, but Larry Sharpe is running a complete waste of a campaign. The only reason to vote for Larry Sharpe in New York is because the Democrat's going to win. So it does you no good to vote for the Republican. But we don't have that here in Connecticut. Bob Stefanowski in 2018 lost by a paper-thin margin in a solid blue state. Democrats in this state are not voting for Democrats the way New Yorkers are. They just aren't. Bob Stefanowski won last year in 2018 by 3.1%. Oz Griebel, who didn't even run on a party line, not the independence ticket, he was a non-party candidate, and got 3.89% of the vote. That's more than 9 times what the Libertarian candidate Rod Hanscom got, who got less than 0.5%. And again, finished 4th place, losing to an unpopular Democrat and a Republican in a blue state, and a guy in Oz Griebel, who didn't even have a party affiliation. Now, again, fellow Libertarians, I get it. Bob Stefanowski is not my favorite candidate. And even within Republican ranks, I thought it was a strategically dumb move to have him be the candidate in that year. But the point is, it makes no strategic sense to even run a gubernatorial candidate on a third party ticket at this point. If you want it, the way that we've seen what Ned Lamont unsurprisingly looks like when it comes to office. We had the 4 years of Trump now, and in 2020, we knew what we were getting in Trump. It's 2022. We've had 4 years of King Ned. We know exactly what to expect. And that includes lying about a budget surplus that anyone can look up by several orders of magnitude that anyone can look up. At best, in a best case scenario, at least 35% of Bob Stefanowski's 40-something percent, 46%, just isn't moving. It's not ever going to be anything other than a Republican. There's no way to get that, which means you're going to steal 24% or something like that. Like the math works out so that Libertarians would have to steal 24% of the Democrat vote to beat the Democrat. That's half their vote. That's half of the Democrat vote from 2018. It's not ever happening. So not a popular opinion, but I think any third party candidate especially, and I think any candidate in general, if you're going to run, you should be running to win. And at least here in Connecticut where ballot access, I'm sorry, it just isn't important. I've had to petition onto the ballot. I've worked with people that have had to petition onto higher order ballots here in Connecticut. It's just not that important. It's just not that important. And quite frankly, I'm going to be voting for Bob Stefanowski because even though Bob Stefanowski is only like 70 to 75% there for me as a libertarian, like the best libertarian Connecticut candidate is only going to get me about 90% of the way there for me. So to gain at most 20% of the way there in a situation where we're almost certainly going to be risking sacrificing all of that 70% for a negative 150% the way there with King Ned. Yeah, no. Step one, get King Ned out. And then over the next 20, 30 years, let's, as a Libertarian Party, start at the lower level where things matter, right? And for those who are watching who have kind of put to sleep with the Libertarian conversation, these local political conversations, this is what matters. This is what's going to affect your day-to-day life in a way that state and federal politics just aren't. And on top of that, here at the local level, which is why we should have devolution, here at the local level, you have a chance to make a real impact. You have a chance to get just a couple hundred signatures on a petition and then cost you, the taxpayer, in the end, hundreds of thousands of dollars over the course of time, if not millions of dollars, less than needs to be the case. And speaking of all of that, when it comes to spending hundreds of millions of dollars in this case, again, reminder, April 13th, that's a Wednesday night at 7 o'clock p.m., is going to be the Board of Finance's public hearing. It's going to be your last opportunity to get any commentary in, to get your thoughts in onto the public record to a governing body before the budget goes out to referendum, right? The Board of Finance is going to have this public hearing in place of generic public comment before one of their meetings. And a huge part of that is because at these meetings, the chair at the public hearings, the chair has a lot of leniency as to how much time and the type of commentary that's allowed, right? So if there's only 4 people in the room and you ask for 7 minutes instead of 5 minutes, the chair may just grant you those 7 minutes. Just go ahead. There's only 4 people here. Go ahead. And the truth is, I'm going to have to be there to film it because that's what oversight, that's what transparency. It's not transparency. That's what daylight means in politics. I'll be there because I have to be there, and I may say a word or two on the matter. But if you want to be involved in this, if you want to have a real impact on your day-to-day life, this is one of the best ways to do that. So that public hearing is going to happen on the 13th at 7 p.m. And then that's going to be it. And then for all intents and purposes, that's it from your end. The Board of Finance is then probably, I don't know if it's going to be immediately after that, maybe a week after that, they're going to have their budget deliberations. That's where they discuss between themselves back and forth what top end, what modifications they might be making. And then for all intents and purposes, there's some clerical steps to happen in between. Then it goes on to referendum. And then speaking of upcoming, again, final invitation, since we're closing in on 8 o'clock, we might actually have a short show today. We might be on time for the first time ever. If you are a candidate for office, I've done these interviews before. You can go onto my YouTube channel. You can see all the interviews I've had. You can, if you guys have connections to these people who are running for office, send them my information. I would love to interview anyone who's running for the 5th district here in Connecticut, for the congressional district, congressional House district here in Connecticut. Would love to interview that. Billy, if you're watching, Billy Mo Buckby, because I know you're up for re-election, love to have a conversation with you. Craig Miner, I know Craig Miner doesn't watch the show, but when I'll say it, Craig Miner, if you this winds up getting to you, I'd love to have Craig Miner on the show. If you're a Democrat, and we interviewed Robin Mann last year, it probably hurt her campaign, to be honest, but I thought treated her with as much civility as I possibly could. Happy to have on any of these candidates. Happy to treat them as though they were a guest on my show. So that wraps everything up just about. So let's go on to your commentary. Let's go to the live Q&A like I promised I would do, like we always do. Jody Gregorio, the Walter O'Connor, chairman of the Board of Finance, scheduled the deliberations for the next day after the hearing. So the budget deliberations will be happening the day after the hearing. That would be April 14th. Yes, Ray is the de facto guest host here. Since Ray, I love having you here, man. I really appreciate all of the people who have watched the show, who have continued to watch the show with all the episodes we have. Ray's been here for a really long time, if not from day one, and has been pretty cool about tuning in. So it's cool, Ray, that you've been tuning in. I really love all the fans of the show, but Ray, I got to give you a special shout out because you've been here You've been here pretty much every single time, at least. Dave Stalvey, can you address if anyone has asked Mary Jane Lundgren to rescue herself regarding the bridge? Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure exactly what you're getting at here, but yeah, she was part of this group of 5 or 6 people. She does live immediately. Well, I shouldn't say exactly where she lives because, guys, I'm not going to give you her address because I don't want any of this to turn into people knocking on her door. If you guys see her in the grocery store, let her do grocery shopping, right? The place to jump down her throat is either in these conversations here or better yet, go to a town council meeting. You'll have 5 minutes to say damn near anything you want. Damn near anything you want, right? As long as you're actually addressing the council and not an individual, the actual council. And as long as what you're saying isn't some sort of just outright defamation, right? If you're going to say this is an incredibly dumb take, you're allowed to do that. If you're going to say this is just an evil political position and an evil way of looking at things and a disgusting take, I mean, the veterans have been doing it for like a month and a half now. You're free to do that. And in some cases, it's due. So if you're talking about Mary Jane digging herself out of her own proverbial hole when it comes to that bridge, when it comes to Boondoggle Bridge, I don't know. I mean, like, she just keeps making herself more and more unpopular and more unelectable. So there's a little bit of Schadenfreude in me that goes something along the lines of, if she's going to keep stepping on rakes on purpose, then she's someone who I'm going to allow I'm just going to get out of her way. I'm going to stop telling her to stepping on rakes. Go ahead, keep stepping on rakes. At this point, I just don't care. Ray Lewis already signed. Thank you so much, Ray. Like, I really appreciate all the people that have taken the time to sign the online petition. Let me pull that up. What are we up to? We are up to 26. So that's really cool. It would be nice to outpace the 5 or 6 people who managed to get 36 signatures, which they did by knocking on doors. And again, I have the paper form. This week is when I'm going to start knocking on doors. This week, if you want me to come to you, happy to come to you. This week, I'm going to try to get myself a booth on the green. This week, I'm going to be setting up a table and taking in these petitions and taking in signatures. So pay attention because I'm going to be out there. Paul Murphy, sad that a few people living by the bridge are making the taxpayers pay 2 to 3 times more than the amount of the original cost of a bridge that the mayor had proposed under emergency conditions. Build the bridge the cheapest way possible and take the taxpayers off the hook. Damn right, Paul. Damn right. Hear, Paul. And just, roads serve a strictly utilitarian purpose, right? There's a reason we make them out of concrete and asphalt and not, oil paint and molding clay, right? There's a reason they serve bridges and roads serve a strictly utilitarian purpose. That's why the bridge that's there now is concrete, asphalt, steel, and a boring design. It's there to get your car from one side of that river to the other, and that's it. That's it, right? It's a point A to point B. It's a strictly utilitarian purpose that they serve. This whole scenic beauty of no. First things first, the road itself is 2 lanes, painted 2 lanes for the entirety of its miles and miles of run, right? The bridge before it got shut down, before all of, the barriers got put up, looked outright out of place. But never minding that, the beauty and the scenery is around the road. It's not asphalt and concrete. Where is the beauty in asphalt and concrete? Again, there's a reason we use these ugly things, asphalt, concrete, and steel, right? It's because they serve a strictly utilitarian purpose. Asphalt, concrete, and steel is really good at getting your car from point A to point B. It's really good at it. It's really, really good at it here in the Northeast where we have winter and therefore we have to use asphalt as the top coat rather than in the South where you can get away in certain places with just strict concrete because although there is such a thing as frost heave in concrete, replacing concrete is unbelievably expensive versus replacing asphalt isn't as expensive as concrete. So that's why we have asphalt up here and they have concrete in the South, right? Like if we had to constantly replace concrete because of frost heave up here, which we would have to do if we had concrete as the finished layer, it would be way more expensive. But Paul, right on. Right on. He's about right when he says 2 to 3 times more than the amount of the original cost of a bridge that the mayor had proposed under emergency conditions. It's actually going to be significantly more than 2 to 3 times the original amount. But if we're talking about the amount at the time that the emergency act took place, the emergency order came through from the mayor's office, yeah, it's about 2 to 3 times that amount. Which, I mean, it tells you something that, like, after years and years and years of delays, the project was ballooning in cost already before the emergency order had to get put in place. And then because it was taking so long, the emergency order was put into place. Become a Republican so you can win a seat. You know, still haven't decided if I'm going to be running. And I have to say that because of the SEC. Can't say anything about that until January 1st of 2023. But I think from a strategic standpoint, honestly, it would be more honest for me to run as a libertarian to begin with. And I'm not here to lie to the voters. But from a strategic standpoint, like it'd be better for me to run as a libertarian, because if I did in 2023, I'd run a completely different I ran a non-campaign in 2017. Let's be honest. I didn't have a campaign in 2017. My name was on a ballot, and then I got out of the way. And 1,500 of you voted for me. But I would need about 3,000 votes, which is it's pathetic that it's gotten to the point that 3,000 votes gets me on town council in 2023. Right? It's pathetic that it's gotten to that point, but that's how unpopular the local Democrats are in town, especially Mary Jane. And to me, the way you get Mary Jane off the ticket is you get 6 Republicans elected into office, and then the 7th person that gets elected into office is a third-party candidate, a libertarian, let's say. I won't name names, but let's say a libertarian candidate is a 7th place vote getter. Then the next 2 positions, let's say they're the Democrats. This time around in 2021, number 1 and number 2 were Alexander Thomas and Hillary Ram. Number 3 was Mary Jane. So if we had a libertarian take even 9th place, Mary Jane's out. Mary Jane's out. And you guys have commented about her in the comment section tonight. She's incredibly unpopular in this town. And it would be, I don't know if the DTC leadership would ever get the message, but it would be one hell of a message to send to the local DTC that their chair didn't get elected. Especially if other Democrats get elected. Ray Lewis, online betting is now legal. Yeah, but the line actually read that it was coming from the Indian tribes. How in the world is that coming from the Indian tribes? Right? I like, from a legal standpoint, it could be that there's been some change in the law in the last year. But again, I would need their offices to say, how did this come to be? Right? I don't see how $46 million from the Indian casinos is going to come from online betting, because you can't tax the casinos legally. You can't tax the Indian tribe. You can tax the Indians themselves as individuals for things like income tax, but you can't tax the tribe. You can't tax the organization. You can't tax the casino, right? So, you know, I know online betting is legal now. I don't know how you would label that as coming from the Indian casinos. Third parties will never have relevance. I disagree. I think it's going to take a really long time, but I think there's a way to get to that point. Mike Boucher, the bridge that's there now is asphalt, rust, and concrete dust. All right. We are going to like that comment. Well done, Mike Boucher. Rich Andy, will the new bridge have double yellow lines on it? Almost certainly. So, the entire rest of the road has double lines on it. So, like, there's a committee that makes those decisions, and the town council can't. Well, I guess they can supersede that committee, but then there would actually be an exposure of liability to the town council for sort of that. Now, for doing that. Now, in my opinion, that is such a stretch. That's such an unrealistic liability. Like the change in liability there to me is so. It's something that if somebody actually went to court and argued that the reason they got into that accident was because 18 feet of road didn't have double lines on it, I think you'd have a hell of a time proving that claim. In court. Now, the reason I would be against it, if I was to be against the double lines on that 18 feet of road, is because you just saved however much money it costs to pay 2 guys to go up there with a truck and paint it for those 18 feet. And I can't imagine that 18 feet of road is really going to increase safety if that's the case. Now, there's been some research on these obscure rural roads where if you have a really low level of traffic and they're kind of narrow, windy roads through the boondocks. And this is going to bring us back to Long Mountain. There's been some research that says that it's actually safer to not paint the yellow lines. And to be quite honest, if it's actually safer to not paint the yellow lines and there's a legal way to get around painting those yellow lines, who wouldn't be in favor of saving the cost of, in the case of Long Mountain Road, paying however many guys to go up there and spend however many days painting like 4 miles of road I would be in favor of that cost reduction, right? Like, I'm not here to take your money. I'm here to say, if there are places where we can avoid taking your money, I'm totally in favor of that. So, the idea is if there's no lines painted, people will be slightly more attentive to where they are in the lane because there's not something there that they can unconsciously and subliminally just absorb. So they're more consciously driving, as in they're more conscious of where they are in the lane. And by being a more conscious driver in that lane, that's not actually where the safety comes from. The safety comes from because you're more consciously driving, you tend to drive both more defensively and slowly. So that makes sense for places like rural roads. It doesn't make sense once you get into even so much as like Park Lane West. Park Lane West is a road where there's enough traffic on that road that you probably should paint the line. And all of those characteristic features of people just slowing down and more consciously watching what they're doing, they don't add up when you start to build up traffic. Wellsville is a road that probably should have a line, right? And probably should get repaved this year. I'm pretty sure it's on the schedule to get repaved this year. There's not really too many roads that have the volume of traffic that Wellsville has that are in as bad shape as it is. So that'll probably get redone. That would be a candidate for painting those lines based on what the research has shown. People have said that that research is invalid because it's from Europe. I'm not sure why that would be the case. Roads are roads for the most part. So, if there is actually a case to not pay a guy to go all the way up to Long Mountain and paint the lines, okay, let's not paint the lines. As far as Long Mountain is concerned, apparently there is some obscure legal liability because whatever committee it was that voted on that voted to paint the lines, already voted to paint the lines, and there's basically no going back on it at this point, which I roll, but you know what? Hey, that's the way things are. Mike Boucher, there are lines up to the bridge on both sides now. Yes, that's correct. When I said the 18 feet of bridge doesn't have lines, it's literally just that 18 feet. So to me, if we're going to skip a step in the process and save money by skipping a step in the process and not reduce and not increase liability or increase risk or increase danger, why not? Why not? I mean, that's all I really have to say on the matter. Like, I think you would be splitting a hair to go one way or the other. So, yeah. All right. I think that gets us through all of our comments. Joe retracted a comment, so I'm wondering exactly what that was. But anyways, we're actually going to be almost on time here. So thanks everybody who's been joining in. We'll be back next week, and next week will be the night before town council meeting. Again, pay attention because I'll be out with the petition. Love to have a paper signature from you guys because that will actually have a greater impact than the petition that's online. A link is in the comments, and I'll be posting that more throughout the course of the week to sign the online petition. It would be great for you guys to sign both. Again, if the more signatures we have, the more opportunity we have to show the town council, to show the 6 Republicans, hey man, everyone's on your side. Just vote with your conscience. We elected you guys to these positions in landslides because we trust you guys, right? And to show the Democrats, well, you made this claim, you made this argument, here's the signatures going the other way. So either eat your own words and vote the right way, or reveal yourselves to be the people that you are. Mike Sennello, you are one of the smartest guys I know. Thanks, Ray. Why can't you realize you can't win an office in New Milford as a third party? Ray, we'll close the show tonight by saying, Ray, challenge accepted. Good night, everybody.